FM, The Source.
On New Year's Eve day, we went to Epcot. No, yes. Animal Kingdom, right? And then Epcot. We went to Disney. There's a ride over there that's so popular that we didn't go on it because the line was 6 hours long. Why does anybody wait in the line 6 hours long? I don't know why they do that, Robin.
Yeah, half the hour, half the day of the
So you get there. And how many people do you think were in front of you? Maybe 2,000?
Yeah.
I don't know how many people. Well, what if 8 million people were in front of you? How long do you think it would take you to get to the 300 spot?
Gee, I would.
I just picked that number, 8 million at random. I don't know how many books are on Amazon. I'm just saying 8 million. It's got to be there somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. Our next guest is at the number 300 position with his book.
Wow.
And with millions of books on Amazon, that's quite an accomplishment in one day. The book only came out yesterday. Oh my gosh. I was reading about our guest, Matt Ginsberg. He has written a book called Factor Man. This is a novel, but it is very much into what he seems to be into more, which is artificial intelligence, which I have to ask him about the smart traffic light because I've been talking about the smart traffic light for 25 years. All right, so let's start with this. Matt Ginsberg is an astrophysicist, a political columnist, a playwright. He constructs crossword puzzles for the New York Times. Really? My dad loved him. He developed the computer program Dr. Phil, F-I-L-L, which solves American-style crossword puzzles. Really? Wow. He's the founder and creator of Connected Signals, which delivers real-time predictive traffic signal data. Oh, that's the thing we're talking about. Okay, I want to ask her about that. He's the creator of Gib, the first computer bridge. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, this is cool.
Factor Man, a thriller novel. He must have wanted to take a break from all that science and write something. Matt Ginsberg, good morning, sir. What an honor to have you on our show.
No, it's a delight to be here. Thank you for having me.
I sure hope we speak the same language. It just sounds like everything's going to be over my head.
I think as long as we do it in English, I'm good.
So Factor Man, let's talk about the novel first, and then I want to kind of go all over the place with you. Factor Man sounds like something I've often thought, I wonder if we're figuring out how God made us. And when you look at a computer and you think, wait a minute, is this the same as our brain? Because we keep referring to ever since the invention of the computer, people say, I have to reboot. When they go to bed, I have to reboot.
So, I hope not. I've done AI for a long time, and I don't share. A lot of people have been very pessimistic recently, Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking, and just saying what a threat AI is. And I'm much more optimistic about it. I think, computers are so different than we are. They have, we have 1 trillion processors that operate, 1,000 times a second, and they basically have one processor that operates, a gazillion times a second.
There you go. Yeah.
So our skills are different. And, we're good at pattern recognition, and they're good at crunching numbers. And I really believe that we'll be able to do more separately than we can do together. And more together than we can do separately, sorry. And that's just good for everybody. So hopefully we are not looking at clones of ourselves. We're looking at these, different alienish things that think differently than we do, and we'll learn from each other, and it'll be great.
And I don't mean to be too deep because I don't get deep anyway, but I don't know that intelligence equals a soul. I feel like the soul is what separates us from what they will become, what artificial intelligence will become. I mean, we can emulate the soul.
I'm sorry, this is not a deep question.
Oh, well, is it?
I would hate to hear you ask a deep question. That would be,
I mean, this is like Sunday school, right? I mean, I don't know. Do you think artificial intelligence would ever have a conscience?
I think they will have things that are in practice indistinguishable from consciences.
Okay.
So I think so as a physicist, one of the things I was taught was if you can't do an experiment to figure out if the answer is yes or no, then the question is sort of meaningless. So I think that computers will look like they have consciences. They'll still be alien, but they'll be predictable in the same way people are predictable. They'll just be different. But I think that the question of whether they have a soul or a conscience, I'm not sure how you could ever actually answer that.
That's true.
I mean, if you ask them, they're going to say, "You bet." Don't mess with me.
Wait a minute.
And
I got my phone right here. I can ask Siri, "Do you have a soul?" I wonder what she'll say.
yeah,
So tell me, okay, let me tell you about the 25 years ago thing. My son is now 31, and he actually works in computers, and he's very successful at it. But 25 years ago, he was 6 years old, and we were at a traffic light, and it was red in the middle of the night, and there was nobody coming or going anywhere. And I said to him, when you get older, I want you to invent a smart traffic light. And because when there was this policeman that used to stand there, he always let me go. Now we have a light. It makes me sound like I grew up in Hillsborough, in Hooterville or something. Yeah, no, but you know what I mean. And so forever, I would say to him, Alex, when you get older, I want you to invent this smart traffic light. And eventually, around 14, he said, Dad, would you stop asking me that? So so Matt, I'm glad you took up the idea.
So traffic lights are not as dumb as they were when you and I were kids, and
Mine
they're. Yours is still like that?
On my corner, yes. I
Mine
go to,
too.
There's
Mine's horrible.
There's no cars coming, and it's still red.
Exactly.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah.
So there are still dumb traffic lights around, but by and large, even the isolated traffic lights like on your corner are supposed to be what's called actuated, which means they look for the cars, and when a car shows up, they turn green.
Really?
But it sounds like and I mean, the first traffic light I encounter driving to work, I'm coming in from the sticks, and it's sort of out in the middle of nowhere, and it just, there are sensors in the road. It knows where the cars are, and when somebody comes, it turns green fairly promptly.
Where do you live?
And this is Eugene, Oregon. It's not like, a giant metropolis.
Yeah, but that's where all the smart people live. All the smart people live up in the Northwest.
I don't think so. There's a little bit of work involved. They've got to put loop sensors in the road and stuff like that. But they really, you have a complaint here. I think you need to somehow, because the technology is there.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
But today, go ahead.
And Gainesville is actually one of the cities we work with to make all this happen.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
I don't think
we're gonna have to go to Gainesville. We're in Ocala, so we're okay.
We're on the outskirts.
Now it all makes sense.
Well, now this week you're on the East Coast. You're participating in a crossword puzzle tournament. How is that going?
I am. The tournament's over the weekend, and I am an absolutely horrible crossword solver. The way I explain it to people who don't understand how really awful I am, when I make a crossword and it comes out in the New York Times about a year later, I can't do it. And that's not a joke.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
I've forgotten enough. I
can't either. So, my father was great at these things, though. He could do them.
I'm good at making them up. I can't solve them. So I wrote a computer program that solves them, and it will be competing in the tournament. And
nice.
It's very stressful. It's amazing because you think, it's a computer. Just let it loose and it does what it does. It's gotten better every year. This is going to be its 6th year, and it's gotten better every year. And I am just totally stressed out that it's going to do worse than it did last year. Last year it came in 11th.
Oh.
And it's
really.
It's really good. It's way better than I will ever be. And eventually maybe 1 year it'll win and then I'll retire it because then I don't have to be stressed out every year. But it's surprisingly emotional, I guess. And the tournament's a blast. I mean, everybody, it's a very friendly community, and you've got all these word nerds there, and they're all just having a good time with fellow word people.
Nice.
Let me ask you something. Do you ever create a puzzle that says John's Yoko? It's a 3-letter word. John's Yoko. That's the one I get. No, that's the only one I ever get.
No, but I want someday to do Scooby Blank, and that's also a 3-letter word.
In your book, Factor Man wants to change the world with a single algorithm. I think you have used it properly, but now everybody else has latched onto that word, and it's like algorithm city or something. Can you explain to me what an algorithm is?
Yeah, it's good.
An algorithm, so computers are unbelievably stupid, right? They do what you tell them. They never do anything else. And an algorithm is a completely defined method for solving a completely defined problem.
Oh, okay.
That's over my head. I knew this was
Okay.
going to go there. I knew we were going to be lost at one point.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So if I say, where should I go out to dinner tonight? That is not a completely defined problem. Because who knows, what am I in the mood for? Do I want spicy, not spicy, ethnic, expensive, and so forth and so on. But if I say, I'm currently at Times Square and I want to get to LaGuardia, what's the fastest way to get there? That's a well-defined problem.
Okay.
Oh,
And then you can say, okay, given what I know, give me a set of steps that I could just blindly execute that would give me the shortest route to LaGuardia.
Oh, okay.
And that's then an algorithm. I've got a well-defined solution to a well-defined problem.
Nice.
All right,
Thank
so-
you so much.
All right. So, who is the protagonist in the I was going to say movie in the book Factor Man?
Soon to be a movie.
So there are four characters. There's Factor Man himself, who I guess is the protagonist. He's the one I identify with because he has solved a problem that I have not been smart enough to solve in my career.
What's
There's an FBI agent.
Can you tell us?
He's
What,
looking for what's called God's algorithm, which is basically an algorithm that can solve pretty much any problem that you can define precisely. So it's sort of a universal algorithm, crack any code, play a perfect game of chess, anything you can describe, the algorithm can find. And he's in trouble because if you can break any code, there are a lot of people who are going to be extremely unhappy and want you to stop or go away or be eliminated or something. So he's trying to get this stuff out there without getting assassinated. There's a reporter who breaks the story. Factor Man actually wants to release this all anonymously, and he reaches out to a specific reporter that he knows. I actually identify as much with the reporter as with Factor Man. The reporter sort of has an attitude, which I sort of have an attitude, so it's all good. There's an FBI agent who's supposed to protect Factor Man, and there's a Chinese assassin who is trying to do exactly the opposite.
Ah, okay. And why?
And-
Why is he doing the opposite? You would think
So
that
the
they.
Chinese government...
Yeah, you would think
The
they
Chinese
would want
government...
them.
Well, they want the technology, but they don't want the Chinese people to get the technology.
Ah,
because
okay.
China is a very closed society, and this algorithm is just overwhelmingly liberating from a technical perspective. And they decide that if they can't have it, they don't want anybody to have it. And the easiest way to get that done is to just take Factor Man out of the picture. So that's why the assassin is busy doing her job.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, can I ask a science question? Would
Sure.
an algorithm that replicated God, and please, religious people, don't get mad at me. I'm just follow along with the storyline here. But an algorithm that replicated God, would the factual part of that be applicable? Okay, this is a hard question to ask, I guess. But would it be applicable on other planets, or are the algorithms only planet-specific or solar system-specific?
So the answer is yes. So remember, you have to have a well-defined problem. So if it's like create life, you can't do that with an algorithm because it's not really a well-defined problem. But if you have a very specific problem and an algorithm that can solve it, that's true anywhere. It's like mathematics. If I ask you, is 3 plus 5 equal to 8 on Jupiter? The answer is yes, because that's really sort of the definition of 8. And an algorithm that can solve any particular problem, it's really a mathematical result. You could prove that the algorithm can solve the problem, and that proof will work here, or Jupiter, or Alpha Centauri, or someplace further away.
So then what is quantum physics? I thought quantum physics kind of defied normal stuff. Am I wrong about that? See, I don't know any of this stuff. I'm just...
So, quantum physics is just a very counterintuitive but apparently correct mathematical description of how the universe works. And it's true everywhere. And in theory, and there's a lot of, I think the current view these days is, so quantum physics says, for example, a uranium atom is going to decay in its own good time. And there's no way to tell. It's sort of like a traffic light. There's no way to tell exactly when it's going to do it. It's just going to do it when it's good and ready. So the modern view is that the universe is actually splitting, and there's this thing called the multiverse, where in one world the uranium atom decays now, in another world it decays a second from now, in another world it decays in 2 seconds, and there are multiple copies of us getting made all the time. And again, it's completely counterintuitive, but the math seems to work, and it seems to describe the universe in which we live
really
accurately.
Isn't that part
so you have to get used to this.
Isn't that part of Stephen Hawking's last paper that was in the news like this week?
It is, and I mean and I have only seen sort of the pop description of that paper, which is that he's proposing experiments that can potentially confirm or disconfirm this multiverse idea.
Okay.
Wow. And it's a relatively old approach. So quantum mechanics was discovered around 1910, and then in the 1950s, I believe, somebody came up with what was called the multiple worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which people have gradually been sort of drifting toward and coming to accept as the most likely sort of coherent explanation.
And while reading the book, you root for the Factor Man because he's out on this epic journey, but he has family, but he does miss them even though they're not with him. But he's really pretty amazing.
He's clearly the good guy, right? He has this unbelievably powerful piece of technology that he's discovered, and he's trying to do the right thing with it. He's trying to make it at everyone's disposal. He knows that, in the short term, it's going to be very disruptive because it's going to ruin all the codes, but and all the secrets. But in the long term, it's a huge amount of promise. It means we can design better drugs, and we can do a better job of distributing resources and making sure that the people who have the least actually get more than they currently get. So, and he's committed to the social good that his stuff can do. So hopefully that means people identify with him and root for him as opposed to the Chinese assassin, who I tried to write. I tried to give her an actual character. I tried not to make her this cardboard, I'm just out to kill people bad person. Mm-hmm. But I think it would be disturbing if somebody found her terribly sympathetic.
Yeah. And you kept the book highly bipartisan, because when they were talking about passing the Factor Man Act, you specifically said that the most number of Democrats and the most number of Republicans voted for it. So there really isn't a slant here.
I tried not to do that. I did say, I think the most political statement in the book is, the book ends in 2021, and they talk about the new president. Mm-hmm. So,
okay.
I do suggest that our current president will not be reelected. But beyond that, beyond that, there's really no politics.
This is a good book.
All right, going back to, what I know about quantum physics, by the way? Everything I know, I learned from the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? So, in other words, I don't know anything. But I have a thought, and it does apply to your book, and it has to do with whenever science fiction seems to predict the future. I have often wondered if it isn't necessarily predicting the future as much as it is writing the future, and somehow that is an influence. Like that book about the Titan that came out like 20 years before the Titanic sank, and it was the same story. Right. You've heard that story, right? So
I haven't.
Oh, you haven't? The Titanic.
I've heard that story.
Yeah, I know, but like 20 years earlier or something, a guy wrote a book called The Great Titan about a big ship that couldn't sink, and it hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic,
Wow.
and everybody died, and it was like the same story. And so you wonder sometimes, and you see this all the time. Science fiction seems to predict the future. And I don't know if it causes the future, but anyway. So are you worried? March 26, 2019, a 7-second internet disruption caused all of us to hold our breaths for about 2 weeks. That's in the book. So this week and a year from now, we're going to have this internet disruption. Perhaps you're predicting something.
So, well, that's just Factor Man getting back at the Chinese who are trying to kill him. And he wants them to back off, and he makes it clear that he can. So somebody who has God's algorithm has just an absurd amount of power. And he makes it clear that he's willing to wield this power to defend himself if need be. I think, futurists' job is to predict the future. It's ridiculously hard, and a lot of them get it completely wrong. I don't think, I look back to when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I had a friend, and we were both science nerds, and we would ask each other what we thought the biggest breakthrough was going to be in our lifetime that was going to completely change the world. And I think we decided it was going to be genetic engineering, and in reality, it's the smartphone. And nobody saw it coming. And you can't find, I don't think, you can see Dick Tracy with his watch, his wristwatch telephone, but nobody predicted what a smartphone would do, and the way that,
no, that's true.
I'm looking at my daughter now, and she's looking at her phone.
But genetic engineering, you may be right ultimately, because there was a story this morning, and again, I don't know if this is genetic engineering, but there was this story about the stem cells in the guy's retina to cure him of macular degeneration, and it worked. It was in England. Did you see that story?
I did see that story.
So that is.
I saw it.
Is that in the same category as genetic engineering?
Well, genetic engineering, I think, is fundamentally a scarier thing, right? That is, pick the sex of your child, pick the IQ of your child, pick the hair color and the strength and all that kind of stuff. And that has just, that's incredibly complicated from an ethical perspective. I can certainly see, you don't want your child to have some horrible disability. But why is it okay is it okay to make sure that your child doesn't have this horrible disability? And if so, does it then become okay? Where do you draw the line? And it's incredibly complicated. The ethics are brutal.
But isn't that the beginning? Isn't it the beginning of understanding that when you experiment with stem cells, or like when you take a twin astronaut and you study his DNA and realize that it changed after he spent a year in space?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Right. It is, and I touch on this in Factor Man, right? I say that scientists historically, and as a scientist, I know this is true, we don't pay attention. We are scientists. We just do the science because it talks to us. And, you can be Oppenheimer and Einstein noticing that you can build atom bombs. And did they make the world a better or a worse place? I don't know, and they didn't care. Right? They're just doing the science, and you just assume that society is going to use what you develop for good as opposed to for evil. But the scientists just busily do the science, and we've gotten so good at it, and the science that we're doing is so ridiculously powerful that it's getting ever scarier that, science can weaponize smallpox. That's probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
But
that's not a good thing.
It's that question, I think, is ever more important.
I like the idea that your book is told from each character's first-person perspective. It's humorous too when you're reading the book. It's a great read.
Thank you. A bunch of people have said they like the fact that it's got four people all talking to you, and I think it seems to be the case that everybody, you always understand who's talking at any given moment, and it was fun to write that way. The whole thing was just a blast. I had a great time writing it, and getting in the heads of these four people was part of the fun.
I have a copy of the book. It is an advanced reading copy, so that makes it a collector's item, I think. Factor Man is what it's called. Matt Ginsberg is the author. I did find it on Amazon, where it is currently number 334 in the techno-thriller category. I'm sure some algorithm figures that out. And it was only released yesterday, so that's pretty good. Pretty good that a book released yesterday makes it that high. I'm guessing it's exciting for you.
I'm thrilled. I mean, it's his first novel, no idea what it's actually all about, so I'm just ecstatic.
And I like that you explained the IP address, because now I know where Google's office is. I had no clue. That's pretty cool.
Oh, really?
There you go.
So, do you have a website you want to recommend?
I do. It's mattginsberg.com, and the book is available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and so on, so people should go take a look.
My goodness, this was a little over my head. Actually, way over my head. I hope
No.
The book is not, though. The book. Well, you know what it is. You have to read it twice, because there are some things you miss. And I don't know if you want it to be a movie, but it seems like it could be a good movie.
I would love for it to be a movie.
And
that would be fun.
And we hope that your computer wins the crossword puzzle competition. It comes in first place.
Well, I think second or third would be good enough this year. Give me something to shoot for next year.
A 3-letter word. Scooby blank.
There you go.
Or is that a 2-letter word? Hey, thank you, Matt. Thank you for being on with us today. That was fun.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. It was fun.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville. 70 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Chris Foster. Fox confirms the suspect in the Austin, Texas package bombings was Mark Anthony Condit. He's dead after setting off a bomb in his car as police approached. Governor Greg Abbott tells Fox
he had 2 roommates, and those 2 roommates have been talking to law enforcement.
Condit was 23 years old. 2 people were killed this month by 4 bombs left in packages on doorsteps, with 4 other people hurt. The Israeli military is confirming that it conducted an airstrike in Syria 11 years ago.
In 2007, long before Syria's civil war broke out, an airstrike destroyed a facility in the east of the country, but no one claimed responsibility.